6:34 is your time right now. We're going to go on over to Mike Eppel standing by at 6:80. We're talking Google this morning, Mike, and a lot of Google.
Yeah, indeed. Melanie, good morning. Google is expanding its Canadian operations as it announced the plans for 3 new offices. One in Toronto, one Montreal, and one in Kitchener-Waterloo. So bringing the job total at some point, they're not giving the exact specifics, to about 5,000, but it raises some interesting questions and points to the fact that the Canadian labor market right now, when we're talking about technology jobs, is very strong. Google is just the latest in a string of companies to announce expanding Canadian offices, basically expanding the footprint, whether it's Microsoft or Amazon or Shopify. You go through the list. So remember, wasn't that long ago when we talked a lot about the brain drain, Canadians having to go to the U.S., specifically to Silicon Valley or other points, for the top tech jobs? That's not as much of a thing anymore. A lot of people are coming to Canada for those top technology spaces. And of course, it does all factor into the stress points, I suppose, on the Toronto housing market. We saw those big numbers yesterday from the Toronto Real Estate Board about the January housing stats. Prices up by 10% and expected to, actually more than that, and expected to climb steadily over the course of this year. Do we have the space from a housing standpoint for all of these new tech jobs and employees? We'll see. Today, we'll get a key signal on the Canadian economy with the jobs report for January due in, and that's also going to go a long way to determining whether or not interest rates are going to come down any further, as the jobs data is one of the key economic data points for the central bank to talk about interest rate policy. So if the numbers are weak, then they're going to be talking about maybe cutting interest rates. If the numbers are fine, then that'll be pushed to the sidelines for the near term. We are watching a Canadian cannabis company struggling this morning with its share price and its overall, not viability, but just its near-term metrics when we're talking about whether or not it's going to make any money. Aurora Cannabis out of Edmonton announced late yesterday the company co-founder Terry Booth is retiring. They're cutting 500 jobs. They're writing off $1 billion worth of assets. And these cannabis companies, after hitting that peak in 2018, are down substantially from an investor standpoint. And this morning, Aurora shares are down another 15% in early trading activity. And Uber not quite made any money in its latest quarter, but the ride-hailing and delivery service company says it's going to be profitable by the end of this year, which is sooner than some had thought. And because of that, Melanie, this morning we're seeing a nice pop for Uber shares, up by about 7%, but still down well off where they started when they first listed last year. Back to you.
All right. Thank you so much, Mike. Have a great weekend.
You too.